The films start with Ellen summoning a demonic entity named Nosferatu, but unknowingly to her, she had made path with an evil demon far beyond her control. The vampire awakens upon hearing her call and declares that she will belong to him, revealing that she is not a human being but something entirely different. Shortly after, is shown shaking on the ground. Several years later in Wisborg, Germany 1838. Ellen is still haunted by frequent nightmares, recently married to Thomas Hutter, a real estate agent. Ellen adores him and expresses that it's too soon for him to leave for work since they are still on their honeymoon. However, Thomas excuses himself, explaining that he must go in order to secure an official position at his work. He kisses her and leaves, but Ellen feels a sense of boring as though it's a forewarning that Thomas will be sent far away. Later on, Thomas rushes through the bustling streets of Freiburg and arrives at his office apologizing to his boss for being late, but his boss dismisses the apology, saying he is aware of Thomas's recent marriage and congratulate him on his beautiful new bride, and Thomas replied back warmly. His boss acknowledges that a newlywed couple would require higher wages and want him to strike an eccentric deal with an old client who wishes to acquire a home in Freiburg, hoping to achieve financial security. Thomas accepts the deal from his boss. Thomas later heads home and shares the news with his wife, bringing her flowers. To his surprise, Ellen becomes agitated, questioning him. He knows that Ellen had a painful past, but he doesn't know the details. Ellen told Thomas that he shouldn't leave and proceeds to share a haunting dream she had. She describes that on their wedding day, instead of Thomas waiting for her at the altar, there was a shadow cloaked in black waiting for her, which she tearfully reveals was death. In the dream, they exchanged vows and embraced. The strangest part was that she felt an overwhelming happiness, and as she turns to look at the guests, she realized they were all dead, including the priest. Thomas, however, dismisses her fears, reassuring her that it's a figment of her imagination and isn't real. The next day, Thomas took his wife to the home of his wealthy friend where she will be staying, and before he left, he reassured her that her nightmare was only a dream, so she has nothing to be afraid of after they made love to each other. The nightmares didn't stop, as he said. Next morning, before Thomas leaves for his journey, Ellen gave him her necklace, but unknowing to him, she cut her hair and placed in there the night before, fulfilling one of the demon's necessities. Thomas eventually departs to the castle in Transylvania Carpathian Mountains, and after arriving there, the people welcomed him with open arms. He was captivated on how cheerful they were, but all of a sudden, they started laughing enthusiastically at him in a strange way. Later on, the chief came and shunned them for their irritable behavior. He was being jeered at for his association with Orlok, but he was eventually able to bribe the chief and pleaded he just spends one night with him. During his stay, an old lady gave him a cross, telling him he will need it soon. Later that night, he witnesses them impaling what they claim a vampire's corpse with an iron stake. He woke the next morning still terrified from the events that happened last night, but he waved it off and continued his journey to the castle. In the process of his journey, he saw a mysterious carriage on the way and boarded it and rode into the castle while some wolves pushed him. Upon his arrival at the mansion, Orlok greeted him coldly, clearly displeased with his tardiness. Thomas quickly apologizes, trying to regain the Orlok favor. Then Orlok, with an unsettling air of politeness, pours Thomas a drink. As they sit, Thomas, still curious about the strange events of the previous night, and asked about the rituals he witnessed. The simulation of corpses by the gypsies. Orlok responds calmly, but explained that this particular group refuses to adapt to modern times and clings to their peculiar traditions. Orlok then orders Thomas to eat, so while attempting to cut a vegetable, Thomas accidentally slices his hand. Orlok, with an unsettling confidence, tells him he can heal the wound if Thomas comes closer to the fire. Thomas hesitated and starts sweating profusely as he senses something's deeply wrong with Orlok. Ellen, on the other hand, tried her best to convince Anna that there is impending danger on the way, but she felt Ellen was all in her head. The next night, Orlok had Thomas to sign a mysterious document written in an occult script. Not long after, he takes Thomas' locket and retrieved Ellen's hair inside. After Orlok opened his chest of gold coins and paid Thomas commission as promised, after which Thomas eventually signed the document. After signing the occult script, Thomas requested to depart as he concluded part of his deal. But Orlok told him going home is a black hole and he has to stay behind whether he likes it or not. However, Thomas woke up from a nightmare and he saw the vampire marks on his chest, knowing he has been fed on. He became finally scared and sought for urgent ways to leave the castle, but all the doors leading outside locked tightly. As he was searching, he found a dark bunker, so he walked carefully downstairs and found Orlok sleeping in his coffin. He then intended to kill him with a stick, but Orlok moved instantly. As Thomas ran away in fright, Orlok recited an incantation on Ellen's hair he retrieved earlier. As this was happening, Ellen yielded from the other realm. Suddenly, Thomas was forced by Orlok to open the door he locked. Thomas was grinning powerlessly, in fright, as he couldn't move a muscle due to the fact he was forced. Orlok feasted on him mercilessly. Afterwards, Orlok had an appalling sex with him while also continuing the feast. Ellen, on the other hand, suffered from a mysterious ailment, and Friedrich called on his Dr. Sievers, who came and diagnosed her condition. As the doctor prepares to leave, Ellen softly murmurs, "He is coming," and he sedated her. Back at the castle, Thomas makes a desperate attempt to escape from Herlock. As he was escaping, he slips and falls into a raging river. Friedrich then warns his wife Anna not to bring up Ellen's condition during their conversations and shares an intimate moment, but was abruptly by Ellen's blood-curdling scream. Rushing to her, they found her convulsing violently. Ellen's condition kept on getting worse, and she didn't seem to be getting better soon, and Wilhelm revealed to Friedrich that the devil is coming. A nun was picking woods in the forest and saw Thomas laying almost dead. She recused him and took him inside the church. Dr. Sievers suggests that Ellen's condition may require a professor expertise and also a cult expert. The nun chant prayers over Thomas, and after awakens with a start confused but alert the nun grave and informs him that his soul has been possessed by the devil and he must remain in the church for purification. However, Thomas is adamant that the true danger is not to his soul but to Ellen. He now fully understands that Herlock isn't after him but after his wife. Herlock journeyed to Wisborg on sea with a dirt and plague-infested rats, killing the ship's crew along the way. Wilhelm, accompanied by Friedrich, eventually arrived at Professor Place. The professor initially told him to go away, but Sievers forced his way inside. When inside, the professor saw it was Sievers. He welcomes him with open arms and asked why he visited him. Wilhelm consulted him on Ellen's condition, which was going out of hand, and by looking at all the information given to him, Albin assumed Ellen is under a spell of Nosferatu, a demonic vampire. He then proceeds in treating her so she could get herself in the meantime, but she became more possessed. Albin told him about the demon and needs time to study more on it. Afterwards, Thomas returned to Wisborg, but after he spoke to Ellen, he fainted immediately. Some guards called Friedrich after Herlock's ship presence and the catastrophic issues happening. The next day, Ellen, still shaken by recent events, thanks her friend Anna for caring for her. Anna believes her illness wasn't just illness but a sign that she misses Thomas deeply, but Ellen replied her that this isn't just about emotions but she has been cursed by a demon. Dr. Sievers still speak to Albin after examining a body that was brought in from the shipwreck who says rat bites on his body, but what surprised the doctor more is that the body is entirely lacking of blood. Albin knew the curse has already begun in the city. Dr. Sievers' assistant arrived with the news that Knock killed a watchman on duty the previous night and fled. At Friedrich's house, after watching over her daughter to sleep, she was shocked to find Ellen standing quietly behind her requesting to sleep close to her, and she agrees. Later that night, Ellen wakes up to find Herlock standing by the window. He told her she was the one that awakened him from the dead. Despite her fear, Ellen replied him that she is in love with Thomas, and he matters a lot to her than anyone. Herlock replied that he is in love with her and that she is not truly human, and telling her the main truth on how her husband traded her with money. Ellen was shocked by the revelation and that she is just an innocent child when she agreed to his demands, but Herlock showed no empathy. Herlock then vows to her that he will start killing those close to her if she doesn't submit by giving her 3 nights to decide her fate. Ellen woke up from the dream, but Anna was devoured by vermin. The hospitals are overwhelmed with patients as the incident spreads rapidly throughout Wisborg. Anna, in her state, confesses to Ellen that she feels something strange in her body in which she can't explain. Ellen was consumed in sorrow and fear seeing her in this condition. Friedrich that coldly told Ellen and Thomas to leave his home, but Ellen warns him that Anna will die unless something is done to stop the plague. But Friedrich didn't listen but wants them out of his home. Dr. Sievers and Albin were planning on how to stop the terror and finally found Herlock's host, breaking in they search for anything what was going on. They find an ancient book that details the existence of Nosferatu and the nature of his curse. Ellen and Thomas leave Friedrich's house through the city. Upon hearing Dr. Sievers and Albin findings, Friedrich laughs at them, dismissing their theories, and asks them to leave his house. He refuses to acknowledge the danger that has already began to claim the city. On getting home, Ellen, deeply disturbed by her inner turmoil, finally reveals the shocking truth to Thomas. She shares a dark, unholy connection with Nosferatu. He was not just a figure of nightmare, but a lover, and a creature she awakened long time ago. She explains that he is returning to claim her once again, and in anger, she blames Thomas for everything. Albin uncovers a chilling truth. In order to kill Nosferatu and the plague, a maiden must be sacrificed, which he knows was only Ellen. As night falls, the horrors intensify. Anna, hearing her children scream in terror, wakes her husband, but was under a sleeping spell. She rushes to the children's room, only to find Nosferatu brutally killing them, and in the process, she falls victim to his wrath and extinguishing her also. The next day, Friedrich, filled with anger and frustration, blames Ellen for everything. Meanwhile, Albin, determined to end the vampire's regime, tells the rest about his discovery, and also told Ellen secretly that she will be the sacrificial lamb to end Nosferatu curse. She had no other choice than to accept her fate. As the tension builds, Thomas bids farewell, promising to meet her soon. Later on, Friedrich was devastated by the loss of his wife, quietly kisses her lifeless form, and dies also. When Thomas and the group finds Friedrich's body, they are struck with grief. They set fire to his corpse as a means of putting his restless soul to rest, and rush to Orlok's mansion. Ellen calls out to Nosferatu, summoning him to fulfill his promise. However, as Thomas and group arrive at Orlok's castle, they find it didn't see Nosferatu but his servant, a vampire. They confront him, and he reveals that he had been deceived by Nosferatu, that he promised him if he helped Orlok, he would make him a prince of France, but kills him with axe. Thomas, driven with love and desperation, defies Albin's warning and rushes to save Ellen. Ellen pledges her vows to Nosferatu, and the two embrace and kiss passionately, their fate sealed in the vampire's grasp. Nosferatu feasts on her blood throughout the night, drinking deeply, without concern for the coming dawn as the first rays of sunlight break through the window. The vampire is consumed by the light, dying in unbearable agony. As the sun rises, Thomas finds Ellen's lifeless body, the woman he loves now a mere shell. His heart heavy with grief, and gently closes her eyes and holds her hands, bidding her goodbye. With her death, the cycle of darkness and sacrifice comes to an end. The city of Wisborg is left to mourn the plague vanquished, but at terrible cost. The movie then came to an end. Kindly subscribe if you enjoy movie recap like this. Also, thanks for watching and goodbye.